argument. Or we can say there's a certain degree of ambiguity. That's also a scientific observation. Scientists do not know the whole truth. Scientists change their opinions all the time. Scientists constantly have new paradigm shifts. They're also swimming and floating. They don't have the truth. They're trying to aspire for the truth. We do the same thing, just we use different material. So that's, I think, a very important argument. We also, I think, just a general opinion. Sometimes we sort of put ourselves into a weak position deliberately. We are scared. We don't make the money, hence we are not quite as worth as the other. Why? It's just a matter of self-confidence. It's a matter of speaking out. It's a matter of defending, for example, let's put it in extreme terms, defending poetry. The absolute value of a very esoteric material. Most people would say, ugh, what is poetry? I don't like poetry. No, come forward and say, poetry is your soul. That's your music. And if you don't listen to your soul, who are you? A dead tree. You don't want to be a dead tree or a stone. You want to be music. So that's what literature does. These are very radical steps forward. We're aggressive almost. Why not? Why not say that we have materials available that resonates with what? With our soul. That's what we need. However you define your soul, I don't know. But that's exactly what we need to search for. And that's what we can do with language, whether it's in linguistics or whether it's in literary analysis, it doesn't matter. We are probing deeper into the essence of human life. And isn't that valuable? Isn't that more valuable than any amount of money? Have you not read anything in the papers about people who make millions of dollars, like Weinstein, and then are suddenly in prison for sex scandals and corruption? I see it all the time in sports, athletes, politicians, you name them. But I rather listen to people who have no money and highly respected. Did Gandhi have lots of money? No, not at all. He established, however, peace for India and created independence. Those are my role models. And no one will care later in 50 years about Weinstein and other people like them. Yeah? Those who can start opening the soul and make us human again, those are the people that count. Because they change people. They have an impact on people. They transform people and give people a sense of meaning. That's what the humanities are about. So the next point is we are not working on dogma, on faith, or on ideology. We are working just like scientists on verification and falsification. We analyze things and try to reach deeper understanding that other people can accept. It's of course always a discourse, it's always contested, that's fine, but no chemist will ever tell me that they don't experience the same problems. With papers published or not published, rejected, and so forth. It's all the same, all the time, everywhere. So look at these terms that are written down. I think that's what humanity is all about. Dialogue, communication, and communicative action. That's a term that I have borrowed from the German sociologist Jürgen Habermas. Probably the most grandiose philosopher of the 20th century. He just published his masterpiece 2019. He's about 98 now. He just published a 2-volume book on history of philosophy. It's a huge work. It needs to be translated into English. But he was telling us in the 80s, communication is fine, but it's not good enough. You can have any kind of communication and talking, and there's nothing that comes of it. You need to have communicative action. That means you need to agree, ultimately, after you have analyzed a text, for example, okay, we agree on a certain minimal interpretation. Then we can carry that for ourselves. That's action. So that you avoid fighting, for example. That you look at literary texts that end in violence or war, And you analyze those and you begin to think, oh, that's the reason why they did not communicate. Oh, I know this from my neighbor. I have this problem. I better don't do that anymore. Yeah. So we can use literary examples as a role model for our own existence. And I say that very explicitly as a medievalist because I look with my students in my writing a lot at medieval texts because they're very far away, so safe for us, but I use them as lenses to understand our own world in a very effective way. And we'll come to that a little bit later. But I also would like to insist, and just as a side note, I think scientists must also learn to acknowledge us. To what extent we can convince them to do that, I don't know, but that would be one of my goals, because you cannot have any conversation amongst the disciplines if we don't have a shared language. That means shared values. Some of the shared values, once again, is verification and falsification. And we do that as well, very effectively in the humanities. And then, money is not the goal of our education. Of course, many, if not most students go into business nowadays, or whatever field, so that they can make quick money. But does it give them happiness? Is that where their soul or their heart throbs? I don't know. I think humanities goes a different route. And that's, of course, where we get into trouble a little bit. Because everyone, parents, administrators, politicians, want our students to make money. Okay. So, I think I've said that already. I can jump back to the Amazon rainforest. Just remember, our discourse can only work if we achieve the same language as the scientists. So I identify literature, the history of literature, which is extremely rich, as the Amazon rainforest, because it has something we all know. And I have another image. I just skip over this. That's just a definition of the Amazon rainforest. And I want to talk about this. Every biologist understands what I'm talking about here. It's a tree. And I'm coming back to the title of my talk, the ancillary motion of our life. So look at the top, the panoply. There are leaves, and these leaves breathe. And in the breathing process, they evaporate water. They create thereby a vacuum. That vacuum exerts a force. That force is transmitted down to the roots. The roots get the message, and they know there is some emptiness up there, and therefore they pump water from deep in the ground to the very top. So I identify this tree, all these trees, as the essence of the humanities, of literature. We are grounded in the past, and we live in the present and the near future. And only if the future, right now, can communicate with the past, will that ancillary action or movement really work. Only then will the water be pumped from the ground to the top, because there is communication from past voices to the present and the future. Does that make sense? The whole, just as a metaphor. And I'm sure if I talk with a botanist, he or she will certainly agree, yeah, that's the basic structure of a tree. Then I can say, well, that's the basic structure of a historical text. That's what the humanities are. We are growing. So please, we have the same language. We're working with the same things, just in different fields. It's the same. So I am very interested in the whole connection, because remember, I'm a medievalist, so that's my major work. I work in the Middle Ages, past, present, and future. So for me, ancient and medieval literature is the bedrock. These are the roots from which our leaves of the present today will receive the water. If we didn't have roots, if the tree did not have roots, what would happen with the tree? Death. Okay? So all plants, all living beings need to have the tripart structure, if you will. Roots, trunk, and panoply. If one part of these three is missing, the whole thing will die. If you have no leaves, for example, because let's say fungi or worms, there will no longer be motion, no water will be transported, and the roots will die. Or vice versa, if we cut off the roots, the leaves will die. And so that's what the humanities is all about. We need to accept the whole breadth, past, present, and future. So past experiences are marvelous literary experiences, whether from 1950s, from the 18th century, from the 16th century, Middle Ages, doesn't matter. They all serve us as springboard to experiment with the various options of human life. And it's too hard sometimes to live through these experiences daily, but rather looking through past experiences and understanding certain consequences, let's say of miscommunication. Maybe we can learn. Maybe there's a chance that we can improve our lives by looking backwards. So, you know, it's like you're driving the highway. Are you always looking straight forward into the future? Or aren't you looking all the time to the mirror and you look backwards? You cannot drive without looking backwards. You need to know what other cars are coming, whether there's danger or not, right? So we're looking backwards in order to drive forward. That would be another metaphor, right? The highway of the humanities, if you will. And so we have through a time suffering, tragedy, but also happiness, and we want to instrumentalize those aspects for our own discourse. That's what we are exploring. And other aspects, of course, God, death, identity, ethics, meaning, love, and so forth. And let me explore another metaphor. What did I say? I want us to understand that we are talking the same language. So this is simply a sediment. That means it's a cut-through soil. I have another beautiful image like this. Looks more like New Mexico, right? So what does that mean here? A geologist, for example. I want to convince a geologist that we in the humanities and geology, we are really doing the same thing. What does a geologist do? The geologist removes the top soil, then removes the next layer, next layer, next layer, maybe 10, 15 layers until he or she finds whatever he or she is looking for. Gold, oil, whatever it might be. We do the same thing. We do this through analysis of texts, images, music, words, grammar. We're digging deep. And the deeper we dig, the more we find new layers of meaning. And if we are not willing to explore the depth of our existence, if we don't work, let's put it this way, if we don't work as geologists of human life, we are missing the boat. It's kind of interesting. We must, or we should understand that we are geologists. And our soil is the human soul. Our soil is the human soul. Almost a pun a little bit, right? But I think it really works very, very well because every poet is trying to do that. You could argue every good poet is a good geologist. They're digging deep and they're trying to probe the meaning of words and the sound and the music of it. So then the crucial questions are the following. What do we take out or what do we add? In other words, do we contribute to the constant growth of those sediments, or are we just simply extracting from the soil and utilize and have use for our own purposes? We are very much now in the new Green Deal era. We are in the Anthropocene right now, meaning we are all fully aware of the risk to our Earth, collapse maybe in the near future because of climate change or so global warming. But at the same time, we need to remember that in human life, we cannot simply take out, use. We also need to contribute. And that's what we do in the humanities. Then next, that's the same point. How do we handle the past? Do we want simply to disrespect the past? That's from a humanistic point of view. Or do we want just to Or do we want, or are we willing to listen to the roots? Remember, ancillary movement, capillary movement. If we don't accept the roots, if we don't accept our history, if we don't accept that there were writers before us who made major contributions, then we are in danger of losing that capillary movement, and we might die. So, I think I just can skip over this. Just a general thing, you can see this yourself very quickly, and I just throw in spirituality and happiness. What would be life without happiness? You can have millions, you can be a billionaire, but do you think Bill Gates is happier than you? Well, he probably has better medical care, but when pancreatic cancer hits him, do you think he's better off? He will die as well in 4 weeks, or 4 months, or whatever. So happiness is a very strange thing, and I want to throw out two terms. Some of you might be, maybe not familiar. What the humanities are dealing with are both the ineffable, if not the apophatic. That means things for which there are no